Hello and welcome back to the Rope Access and Climbing Podcast, YouTube edition. I am your host, Mikey Stevenson, and today I'm going to be talking about rope access grating barriers. If this is your first time here, please make sure to subscribe and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. So stay tuned. Step into your harness and get ready for a podcast about the vertical world. Hello and welcome back. Thank you very much for tuning into today's episode. Before we dive in about talking about each one of these devices, I just would like to let you know that this is a comparison video and I have purchased each one of these independently, which has given me the ability to work with these devices in the field and in the training center, so to kind of give you a better understanding of my personal experience with each one. All right, so let's dive in first of all with the Gorilla grating insert here. All right, so the Gorilla insert here is a plastic construction. I'm not sure if it's 3D printed or a mold. Pardon me on that one. It's not super bulky. It does have sharp edges, so highly recommend not sitting on it. But all in all, pretty easy to use, pretty sleek. And definitely have no problems with it. Definitely don't have a whole lot of things to say bad about it. I do like the fact that they have integrated a connector hole, which allows you just obviously to attach a carabiner to it so you can store it on your harness. Also, they do recommend that you use it to secure it to the grating, but with the structure, it does limit where you can use it. This device also does float a little bit. That's the one thing I'm not too fond about, is it isn't a super secure barrier when you have it in use. Okay, it does float around. I have seen it kind of lift up a little bit, but I've never had this physically come out of the grating and then expose my ropes to the grating. If this is something that you've encountered, please let me know in the comments. I definitely have some questions about what you were doing. I've used this for hauling and lowering, and when I've used it for hauling, I've definitely had it kind of come up on me, but that's pretty much the extent of it. Now, point of entry, this is definitely something that I pay attention to when it comes to these devices, okay? Obviously, depending on what the radius is here will depend how much friction I'm going to introduce to the haul, or potentially the lower, right? Obviously, the steeper the angle, the more friction you're introducing into the system. So this definitely has a real nice radius, cutting down on that friction. All right, moving on, I have a Mac Pro. Probably you've heard or seen these online. Super sleek, lightweight, not bulky, great little devices. They do come in a pair. So, I only have the one here, but I mean, yeah, they do come in a pair. Now, when it comes to storing on your harness, just clip a carabiner onto the strings and, they can kind of go anywhere you want. Now, the one caveat I have with them is the fact that they're super finicky, especially here in Canada. And, we work in, minus 20, minus 30 degrees Celsius weather. So, attaching these to the grating when it's super cold can be extremely finicky and definitely not a fun thing. You're kneeled down on the grating and, you're trying to tie this onto the grating when it's super cold and whatnot. It's definitely not going to be a fun time. So that's the one thing I don't like about them, is just strictly that, okay? So yeah, just make sure that you go underneath the first bar on either side. And myself personally, all I do is just tie clove hitches on each side. But imagine trying to do this when it's minus 30 outside. It's not going to go so well, especially, if you have gloves on and you're working in the field. You don't want to take your gloves off when you're at work. So keep that in mind when you are grabbing these devices to use. All right. Now, When you're using these, it does float around a little bit, and the more you haul through this device, it will get pulled up a little bit more. Yet again, I haven't had it physically come right out, but depending on how loose those clove hitches get, it may be something that you do have to worry about, okay? So great device because it's super small and lightweight, easy to store on your harness. Not so great that it's not the most secure either, okay? So moving on. Is the Rope's Edge Vortex grating barrier. So put that in, slide it up against the bar in whichever direction I'm using. So I have one set up here with a little bit of a haul system here. And because I'm pulling from this side, I'm going to slide it up against that bar. Now, slide that up against the bar in which I'm going to pull, turn it until it stops, lock it down. Toolless, don't have to move it, don't have to worry about it coming loose. Super slick. Lightweight, not bulky, gives you a nice little string to attach to your harness with a carabiner. Also, another little nifty thing is, if you have an additional hazard underneath the grating, you can attach a fabric rope sleeve on here, slide that through the grating or clip it underneath, and then it just gives you that extra little bit of security because you have that additional rope sleeve there, okay? Finally, we have the DMM Edge Hog. I'm probably pretty sure that most of you have seen something like this before. So DMM attacked a problem that we had in our industry a long time ago, and then since that point, these other devices have been developed, which is basically taken this device and made it almost obsolete. Now, obviously it's not obsolete. It's, it's going to be around for a long time. This device is not going anywhere. It's super solid, and it's not going to wear away, right? It's metal, it's heavy, it's bulky, and yeah, it's definitely not something that I am going to use or haul up to a top of a 300-foot tower if I have any other option. But on top of that, it's extremely finicky. And that's probably the one thing that I dislike about it the most, is how finicky it is. So I gotta put my fingers down underneath here, secure those bars down. All right, here we go. Great. And then I gotta pull a nifty wrench out of my hat, tighten this down. Great. And now I can go to work. That's great, awesome. But providing that I bring my wrench back, I can then bring this back. But if I don't, this device is stuck there. So, make sure that you have some planning. If you are leaving that job and passing it on to somebody else, make sure that they know that you have an Edge Hog in play, because these are not cheap devices to leave around on site. So, make sure that you're watching out for that sort of thing. All right, so going into that, moving on is the manufacturer specification. So one of the biggest things that all of these have in common is that none of the manufacturers would like you to use these with a 90-degree entrance into them, okay? So with all of them, they rather have a lower angle of entry than a 90-degree sharp bend. Keeping in mind that when it comes to radius of entry, the Vortex is definitely the best, and then the Gorilla. The Mac Pro and the Edge Hog are both very steep angles, so if you are having a steep bend, you're going to increase the amount of friction, and then ultimately, reduce the longevity of the rope in the long run. Now, the Vortex has attacked this radius problem by 3 times the radius bend here on the entry. And quite honestly, I'm not sure what the Gorilla radius is. So, but moving on, price. That's something that a lot of people talk about here, and what's the price of these? So the Vortexes are coming in at the highest price range at $200 a pair. Then we have the Edge Hog coming in at around $150 to $175 Canadian. We have the Gorilla Grating insert right around that $70 to $75 Canadian range, and then the Mac Pros coming in at $60 to $65 Canadian range. So when it comes to comparisons here, we have the Gorilla and the Mac Pro that are in the kind of the same price range, and then we have the Vortex and the Edge Hog right in that same range. But currently, right now, we don't really have a whole lot in that middle range for pricing. Now, at the end of the day, obviously, your life is worth every single penny, right? Let's be honest there. But obviously, some people don't want to spend $200 on a device to protect their ropes. So maybe the Mac Pros are a great option. Now, the problem about the Mac Pros, they may not last as long as what the Vortex is, or obviously nothing's outlasting what the DMMs are. So keep in mind when you're buying these devices that, over time, you may have to, replace them. So think about it when it comes to that. So like if you want longevity, obviously the bigger, the bulkier one here being the Edge Hog, nothing's gonna happen to this device. But then the Vortex the Mac Pros may be the less, the ones that don't last as long per se, okay? Keep in mind, we're talking about hard barriers here, and we're not talking about any sort of a soft barrier. And at the end of the day, make sure you're following the manufacturer's specifications for each and every device that you are using out there. All right, well, thank you very much for tuning into today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. So this is obviously a pretty big topic, the whole rope protection, rope barriers thing over the last little while. And I thought today would be a good day to kind of, talk about a few different options that I've used out there as hard barriers between the rope and the grating. Now, if you've used any of these devices or any other devices like this, please let me know in the comments below. I'd definitely like to check out some different devices that are out there. Like I said, these are the 4 common ones that I've used, but obviously I'm sure that there has to be some other ones out there that I just don't know about yet. Now, if you like this video, please make sure to hit the like button. It definitely helps out and shows your support for my content here. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications as I do put out new content every Sunday, and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time.